Hey guys, it's Julia. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to be talking about autism, specifically in girls, I guess, because a lot of the traits within diagnosis are kind of male traits, which is fine. You know, of course, males have autism, but females do as well. They just don't generally get as recognized as males, and I'm going to talk about a bunch of traits and stuff, but like, the most important thing I want you guys to take away from this video is early intervention. Early intervention is so important. More kids have been getting diagnosed recently. And that's okay because those kids need that help. And this help isn't to mainstream kids. It's just to make them the best version of themselves. You know, because autistic kids have so much potential and there's so many positive things about having the condition. And early intervention is really important to make these kids at their personal best and make their life as satisfactory as possible. And the possibilities are endless, to be honest. Just sometimes they need a helping hand, and there's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, early intervention is so important. So if you have any question in mind, please get that taken care of, because learning to cope and learning to get better is really important. So, yeah, I got my notes here. I'm gonna talk about some of the traits and stuff. And the first things first is autism's like really personal. Like, it looks different to everyone. Like, it's generally like the same, you know, social challenges and stuff like that, but everybody, you know, experiences it different. So, first things, I guess, is everybody has their own analogy. Or like, most people have their own analogy for autism. Mine has to do with, like, I think of birds because, you know, compared to humans. Like, I'm the bird compared to neurotypicals being humans because I'm, like, flying high or whatever. And I could see all of these details that may be missed by neurotypicals. But when the bird tries to interact with the human, like, things get a little complicated, and I kind of gotta adjust how I think to, in order to, like, oh, it's my dog, in order to be able to communicate efficiently. So, yeah, another personal thing about autism is that it's a spectrum, but sometimes it can be a spectrum in a spectrum. So, there's a lot of talk of high functioning and low functioning, but, the same person can move up and down the scale depending on, like, you know, what hardships they've been through. Like, if there was a family death, you know, you may regress, or you may, like, get higher due to, like, I don't know, 6 days a week therapy to help, like, you learn how to learn. So, yeah, and sometimes you'll just have harder mental days where you'll move up and down the scale of, you know, low functioning, high functioning, you know. Most people fall in the middle. So another thing is, it is possible to form a relationship with somebody outside of the spectrum, but your threshold of what you can handle, like, with that kind of thing is personal. So maybe you have no desire to be in a relationship. Maybe it is crucial for you to be with somebody on the spectrum too, so they can understand your idiosyncrasies. And sometimes it's possible to be with somebody outside the spectrum. What I just try to do, though, is if I've dated people not on the spectrum, and what I just do is try to explain, you know, what I've been through so they can, you know, understand and not say they don't get it because I explain it to them. So, yeah, autism also can come with other disorders. A common one is anxiety. That's one of the ones I have. Also, I have a seizure disorder, but, like, it's debatable on whether that has to do with my autism. But sometimes these other disorders can heighten the effects of autism, and sometimes it gets confusing on what comes from where. But it definitely makes you more susceptible to other disorders. Anxiety is the biggest one. Another thing that's personal is just sensory issues. Like, there's certain textures that people can't deal with. I know personally, like, anything to do with, like, I hate, like, the dentist and, like, the eye doctor, because, like, people, like, touching those, like, personal areas, like, that doesn't sound right, but, like, it really bothers me, and it's just, like, kind of, it's hard to tell the difference between pain and just, like, you know, feeling uncomfortable. I don't know if that makes sense, because generally autistic people have a higher pain tolerance, but, you know, these things can just be uncomfortable, and they can be seen as pain. So, yeah, the next autism trait that's not so personal, it's just, you know, it's just kind of being aloof and having to remind yourself to be aware in situations, not just automatically being aware in situations. And that can be kind of dangerous sometimes, but it's just something, that's one of the things you learn in therapy. You gotta learn to be aware of these kind of things. Okay, so the first thing is to being aloof is everything is at the same volume. Excuse me, everything is at the same volume, or you can tune everything out. I don't know if this is just me, but I've heard it from other people. Like when you're in a social setting, that's why social settings can be kind of frustrating, like eating at a restaurant or being at a birthday party or something, is that, for example, my voice and my fan right now are, like, the same exact volume. And that means, you know, sometimes us autistic people talk too loud, or we just get overwhelmed. And I constantly sometimes have to ask people to say what they said again, and not because I'm deaf, but because it's just too many sounds to process at one time, especially when they're at the same volume. And I can also ask people to repeat when, like, I'm doing a certain task, like homework or something. I'll tune everything out. And that's not too great either, you know, and then you just hear nothing to stay on task. Another thing is, like, a delayed reaction time. And this has to do, I think, with the sound thing. But also, it's just, like, you know, having to manually ask yourself what's going on, I guess. So, like, maybe if somebody throws a ball, you have to be like, oh, you know, have to remind yourself, this is what I do when somebody, like, throws a ball. And then I gotta catch it, you know? And then that's a delayed reaction time, because you have to spend time thinking about what you're gonna do in that situation. It doesn't just naturally come to you. So, yeah, another thing is having a hard time reading between the lines. Because autistic people can be seen as very literal, and learning the non-literal things doesn't just come natural. You know, you have to, like, be around certain examples and read how other people take these situations. Another thing is may need something explained multiple times. And I brought this up previously, but, yeah, it's because, like, sometimes we can even get confused because there's already so much going on in the back of our head that one simple thing can sometimes, you know, fly away. We need to explain it again. Has to think about whether phrases are literal or not. Oh my goodness. Again, I brought this up, but, like, you gotta, like, think about these things because everything naturally comes literal. You gotta, like, figure out what's going on. So, yeah. The next obvious autism thing is being socially challenged, you know, which is, autism is mainly a social disorder. So, yeah, the first thing is that this wasn't the original first thing on my list, but I want to bring this up first. Where is it? It's a learned social skills, not faked social skills. And a lot of the other female autistic videos I've seen is that it's fake social skills, and I don't like that because it, you know, paints it as negative, where I don't necessarily think of it as negative. It's just learned. It's like building up a muscle. Building up a muscle. And I can enjoy social skills. It just doesn't come naturally. You know, it's learned. A lot of this thing is, like, physically learning. Like, instead of just, you know, seeing somebody cross their arms, you know, and naturally knowing, you gotta be like, oh, this person's crossing my arms. Or crossing their arms. They're, you know, upset. And, like, I have to take that, like, extra step in thinking about stuff. So, yeah. So we have on here, too, having to recharge. So after a taxing social situation, because there's, like, a lot going on, I might have to sit with myself alone for a little while, and I notice every morning I'll take like an hour, and every night I'll take like an hour just to be by myself and just recharge. And that's something I've been doing since I was little. And that's something that necessarily therapy hasn't untaught me. So, yeah. Another thing is just general social awkwardness. And this is because since everything's on manual, like, sometimes you feel out of the loop because you're trying to, like, figure things out as you're in these conversations, and sometimes it doesn't just naturally come up. Another thing is more trusting than the average person, because we are so honest and pure, and we don't set out to, like, hurt other people, you know, despite the school shooter stereotype, which, oh, that bothers me because, you know, we're not like that. But very, very few of us are like that. But personally, you know, being more, you just got to realize that not everybody thinks like you, you know, and I've noticed that through difficult, you know, situations, that not everybody is as trustworthy as me. So, yeah. Another thing is trouble with authority. And this is because, like, you know, grow up observing people to see, like, where you should be at, you know, having trouble with, like, the normal authority and, like, having to report to these people and, like, the preconceived notion of what you're supposed to do is hard. And you just gotta realize that, you know, you're just as entitled to talk to anybody, or to talk to anybody as anybody else is. And another thing, too, is, hold on, y'all, is different versions of self in different settings. So, like, the amount that you have to process things is more within different settings. So, like, during school, I know that it's not appropriate to, like, you know, melt down or freak out. So, yeah, but at home, like, I can more, like, wind down, and I can be my weird self, and I don't have to live up to other people's expectations as much. And the last thing is, excuse me, y'all. The last thing is extremes. So not necessarily like I'm gonna jump off a cliff extremes, but like extremes to where just people are more gray and you think like more black and white. So the first thing is obsessive behavior, but it might be like more about typical things, and you like have obsessions. You may obsess about like, you know, a person, or like your favorite makeup brand or something like that. You know, so these obsessions can be about typical things, but we just take it like one step further than neurotypicals. And then another thing is comfortable in routine. And this is talking about like extreme routine, like I'll eat the same thing for lunch every day when I go to school, or all that stuff. Just when things are predictable, I am more comfortable. And it's not that I don't like to adventure, but like I like to know like when I'm gonna adventure, and I have certain boundaries that I feel comfortable in. Again, I brought this up previously, but having a hard time with gray areas, because like these gray areas, you know, when I like overthink, this might be my anxiety too, but you know, things just being in the middle is hard because we're so honest, and like things just saying neutral to me is difficult. Another thing is, where are we? Feels but has a hard time expressing it. So it's a stereotype that autistic people don't really feel at all. But if anything, I feel like I feel more. But I just don't know how to express it appropriately, I guess, or I'll express it too much, or it'll come out in like, you know, freaking out form, which isn't necessarily healthy. And it's something that therapy has helped me get better with. And another thing is a fear of irrational things, but no fear of rational things. So it's something like, you know, where I'm chilling in the dark or whatever, and I'm completely comfortable. I'm in a small space. I'm completely comfortable. Like, you know, oh, just ask me to go do something big. Like, you know, I'm completely comfortable. But things as simple as, like, you know, talking to a teacher at school, or, like, other things like that, you know, I'll get so scared for literally no reason. Or walking into volunteering that I've already done. Like, you know, that those fears are irrational. And then the last thing is just like kind of generally book smart to an extreme. Like, I've got called like a little genius before. I'm not actually like a little genius, but yeah. So that's like about it. I'm sure there's many more that I missed. Comment down below if you suffer from any of these or there's other things. So yeah, I hope that made you guys get a better understanding, and let me know of any let me know of any other video ideas you'll have down below. Thank you guys. Bye.